I think I found our modern day version of Franz Kafka. Hello, and welcome back to the Book Love Podcast. I'm your host, Matt from Ohio, and most of you probably know me for reading and reviewing mostly fantasy and mystery novels. Those are 100% my escapes from the world. They're my go-tos, which is why I read them and I feature them so heavily. But I did go through a very lengthy period in my life where I read what could maybe be labeled as like genreless fiction. Little history lesson, okay? Most of my preteen and teen years were definitely lost in world-building fantasies and like, I guess me trying to be smarter than the puzzle for mysteries, right? But then in like my last year of high school and then college and most of my 20s, I decided to try to like search for the meaning of life, try to understand it. Maybe I was just searching for a way to feel smarter than the world, right? Either way, shape, or form, right? I became obsessed with those kinds of books. I dove deep into it, bought the entire library of etc. authors, like Norman Mailer, Franz Kafka, Bret Easton Ellis, Chuck Klosterman, Truman Capote, George Orwell, J.D. Salinger, stuff like that, right? And I think I found our modern day version of Franz Kafka. Before we get into the book review, though, do me a huge favor and like this video and share it with all of your book besties. Like, let me know if you like content like this. And afterwards, if you end up liking this book, if it interests you and you want to know more about it, do me another favor and check out my interview with Matt Joudrey, linked here and in the description below. He's the author of the book we're about to talk. Marmalade Parade by Matthew Joudrey is the story of a man who arrives at a home in like a non-disclosed location in the mountains. He doesn't know who he is or anything about his past, right? And in the house already is an older man who is clearly going through some sort of mental decline. He knows things, but like he doesn't fully remember or understand. And because of that, he doesn't know if he can actually really trust the things that he does remember. Now, simultaneously, sometimes together, sometimes separately, these two men have to figure out why they are there, why they've been brought together, and like what links them. This book just came out May 1st, 2026, right? Marmalade Parade is 200 pages, and it really uses the idea of memory to explore other ideas, like ranging from identity, object permanence, the meaning of life, existentialism, and time itself. You see, a memory is nothing more than a subjective human construct, and it's not permanent, right? Yeah. How does that affect our understanding of ourselves and the world around us? Do we know who we are? Can we trust what our senses tell us? What is reality and what solely lives inside of our minds? For example, inside this story, the man remembers things he already knew. Does that mean he's actually just learning new things? Is the world they live in mostly gray, like they describe it as? Or maybe can the characters not remember words for color, right? That's Marmalade Parade. Interesting, I know. But before you rush out to buy this book, there are 3 things you should probably know. In my book reviews, I usually talk about like the good, the bad, and the ugly type of a format. But I don't think that we can do that with this book. This book is not for everyone. So I just want to tell you what you're in for so you can make the most informed decision. Number 1, genre. Okay. I said it's genreless fiction, right? And that doesn't make any freaking sense. but it does. Here's what you're in store for, right? This book is a little bit supernatural. It's a little bit of a psychological thriller. It's kind of a mystery. It definitely has sci-fi elements in there, and there are philosophical over and undertones throughout it. Maybe that's good for you. Maybe that's horrible for you. For me, I read this book the first time and I was like, what the hell am I reading? Right. And then on my second read through, actually, I was like, oh, wow, holy shit. This is profound. Um, I'm not sure that I've read anything quite like it. But if you want to compare this book to other authors, because we all want a point of reference, right? I'll give it my best shot. First of all, I am very heavily reminded of Franz Kafka, specifically The Castle. Now, when I threw this opinion at the author, he actually brought up The Trial by Franz Kafka, which I thought was actually might be more spot on, if that makes sense, if you've read any of those. But if you're not familiar with Kafka, my better half is not familiar with Kafka, right? Here's a little bit about him, right? He was not a successful writer when he was alive. It was only after his death that his works became the seminal pieces of literature that we consider them to be today. I'm saying that to say that is a cautionary tale for us to not be so quick to dismiss books in our own lifetimes. We have to look at things and notice them. Now, given that you're unfamiliar with Kafka, if you're still listening to this, let me try to mash up some other writers to try to kind of explain what you're going to be reading, right? It's almost like if you take sci-fi elements like sort of like Ken Scholes, and then you tease out the psychological messed upness from a Bret Easton Ellis book, sort of like Glamorama or something like that. And then you take the interesting philosophical questions that someone like Chuck Klosterman explores, and you wrap it all into a very unique voice that I can only describe as Matthew Joudrey's. That is Marmalade Parade. But again, single comparison, Franz Kafka, The Castle, Franz Kafka, The Trial. Number 2, although this book is 200 pages and it is relatively quickly paced, it is not a beach read, right? Let's talk about storytelling style. 200 pages sounds easy, but this book is filled to the brim with deeper meaning and symbolism out the wazoo. I would define this novel, if I was telling somebody about it, as being like elevated prose or maybe elevated rhetoric. But I don't mean to say that the book is inaccessible. It is very accessible. It's just written differently than most stories, and it's going to leave you feeling uncomfortable. But that's the point of the book. So don't let that turn you off. It's written in 3 parts, and that sort of sounds like a play, but it's not, right? Act 1 is going to be like 60% of the book. And it is the quintessential novel, right? It is the first person narrative story told through the man without any memories perspective. Act 2 is the second part of the story. Obviously, it's Act 2. And it's told through transcripts and redacted documents. Very fascinating. Act 3 is the fallout or resolution to the entire thing. And it is discussed by 2 unnamed characters, like after the fact, using a bit of hindsight. And they're just paper pushers trying to clean it all up. Very, very fascinating, very disparate, but it allows you so many avenues to piece this story together. It's fascinating. Maybe you like things like that. Maybe you don't. I wasn't expecting it. I was thrown for a loop. But like, as part 1 segues to part 2, it starts to make sense and it feels kind of genius, you know? Furthermore, with the storytelling, right, there is not a lot of he said type verbiage, right? What I mean by that is when a character says something and then there's a comma followed by the words something like he explained emphatically so you know who was talking, or I said something like that. Not a lot of that. Spoken sentences are often left in isolation. Conversations go back and forth very, very quickly as though you're in the room with these characters and you don't need to be told who's talking. Is that a problem? No. But I will be honest with you. You do need to be very present while reading so you don't get confused. I myself got confused and I had to backtrack a few sentences and start things over to make sure I was following who was saying what. Maybe possibly the old man said or I said or something like that could be helpful, but it adds a definite rhetorical voice and theme to this. Like, it's so unique. I wouldn't change it. Just be warned. And the reason I give you that warning is I have met one person in my personal life where something like this it would result in a DNF almost immediately. Number 3, will you understand it? Maybe, maybe not. I personally read the book twice, and I'm on the fence to whether I fully understood it or not. But then again, my experience with Franz Kafka is exactly the same. Is like, what does this book mean? Is there supposed to be an answer? I don't think there is supposed to be an answer. I think that that's the point. This is a little bit more of a thought provoker, a conversation starter, rather than a thesis on something. But maybe that's a deal breaker for you. I once had a college professor, very, very intelligent dude. He had he had a mathematics undergrad from Harvard, and then he went to Yale and got his PhD in philosophy. Like, super smart dude, right? He was teaching a graduate seminar on the Critique of Pure Reason by Immanuel Kant that I was in, and I remember it was like day one of that class. He told us an anecdote about his experience reading the Critique of Pure Reason, and he said something along the lines of, I read it and I didn't get it. And I read it again and I didn't get it. And I read it again and again and again. And by little, I gained understanding about it until maybe the 9th time I read it, I was certain I understood everything that Kant was trying to say. And then on that 10th read, I threw the book against the wall and cried because I didn't understand anything. Okay, pretty hyperbolic. But I think this book might be a little bit like that. And I love that. And I think it's the point of the book. It's open to our interpretation. It has several meanings. It has several ways that you can read it. I think that's genius. And I think all books should really be like that. We shouldn't be told what the story is, what the point is. We should get to decide for ourselves. The book should be able to age with us as we age. The book should be able to be relevant as our world changes and things shift. It's kind of genius. Like, who is this book for, and do I recommend it? All right. If you like your mind being messed with, if you like contemplating philosophical quandaries, if you like the esoteric, this book is as much for you as it was for me, and I 100% recommend it. It's Marmalade Parade by Matthew Joudrey. Now, if you don't like having your mind messed with, if you don't like to think, I feel sorry for you. And I will say that this book is probably not for you. I personally was intrigued front to back and I didn't get bored. And it got better when I read it the second time. And I want to read it again. And I'm just waiting for my physical copy because I want the third time I read it to be the physical book and not the ebook, right? It's definitely a book without question that rewards curiosity. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and put a bookmark in it for now. Thank you so much for clicking on this one. If you haven't already, check out my interview with the author, Matthew Joudrey. I'll link it here somewhere. And as always, let me know what you thought of this review and if it jives with how you read the book. What worked for you? What didn't work for you? I want to know. Book is super interesting, and you can get in touch with me. All my contact information is in the description down below. Until next time, happy reading. Cheers.